Working harder is the most expensive lie the middle class was ever sold. Not because hard work is wrong, but because most people use it as a substitute for the one thing that actually moves the needle. Marcus believed this lie for 6 years, 70 hours a week, 3 jobs, $200 in savings. And the cruelest part, he was doing everything right. That was the problem. Monday through Friday, he worked as a project coordinator at a mid-sized logistics firm, $52,000 a year, decent benefits. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, he drove for a rideshare platform. Saturday mornings, freelance data entry for a small accounting firm at $20 an hour. His life was a mosaic of side hustles blurring into a single exhausted 70-hour week. He told himself it was temporary, that the next raise would change things, that if he could just get his income above $60,000, the math would finally start making sense. He had been telling himself that for 3 years. The raise came. The math didn't change. The lifestyle absorbed the difference before he could protect it, and he was back to $200 in savings inside of 60 days. He was running as fast as he could. The distance wasn't changing. One Tuesday evening after a long rideshare shift, he picked up a passenger, a quiet woman in her early 60s who carried a worn leather notebook that looked like it had been everywhere. There was something about her certainty, the way she sat like someone who had stopped trying to prove things, that made Marcus drop the mask. He told her everything. The 3 jobs, the 70 hours, the $200, the math that never changed, the raise that didn't help, the exhaustion that had stopped feeling like a phase and started feeling like a sentence. She listened without interrupting, without offering solutions, without the impatient energy of someone waiting for their turn to speak. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. What she said next, Marcus had never heard in 6 years of working, 2 years of community college, or a single conversation with anyone who claimed to know how money worked. It was one question, and it made everything he had built his identity around feel suddenly, irreversibly questionable. "What are you trading all those hours for?" "Money," Marcus said. "Stability. Getting ahead." "Are you getting ahead?" Silence. He didn't answer, because the answer was obvious, and saying it out loud felt like admitting something he wasn't ready to admit. "Here's what nobody told you," she said quietly. "There are 2 ways to create financial progress. The first is to sell more time. The second is to make each hour worth more. You have been doing the first your entire adult life. You have never once seriously attempted the second." Marcus frowned. "What does that mean practically?" "It means that at 70 hours a week, you have already hit the ceiling of the first method. You cannot add more hours. There are no more hours. So the question becomes, what is 1 hour of your time actually worth right now? And what would it take to double that number without adding a single additional hour to your week?" Marcus had never thought about it that way. He had always assumed the solution to not having enough money was to work more. That assumption had driven every decision he had made for 6 years. It had never once occurred to him to question whether the assumption itself was the problem. "Most people," she said, "spend their entire working lives laboring harder inside a system they never stop to examine. They add hours instead of questioning the value of each hour. The ceiling of your income isn't determined by how hard you work. It's determined by how clearly you think. Most people never examine the thinking. They just keep running faster and wonder why the distance doesn't change." Marcus pulled up to her destination. She gathered her notebook and opened the door. Then she paused and looked back at him. "Change the thinking first," she said. "Everything else follows." She reached into her notebook and handed him a card with just her name and a phone number. Then she paused once more. "One more thing," she said. "The framework for everything I just told you, it exists in writing, has for almost 90 years. When you're ready to make the call, I'll tell you what it is." Then she was gone. Marcus sat in the parking lot for a long time after she left. He drove 3 more rides that night, pulled into his parking spot at 11:52 p.m., turned off the engine and sat in the dark. He had 3 jobs and no direction, and for the first time he understood that the second problem was the one actually causing the first. He had been so focused on adding more of what wasn't working that he had never once stopped to ask whether what he was doing was worth doing more of. Just the question itself, not the answer, just the act of finally asking, felt like the first solid ground he had stood on in 6 years. If you're not following Tycoon logic, you're probably adding more hours to a system you've never stopped to examine. But if you are, you're learning that the ceiling of your income was never determined by how hard you work. It was always determined by how clearly you think. In the next video, Marcus makes the call, and what happens in that first conversation changes the entire direction of his life.